anyway, the firefight occurred kind of quite by accident. I was involved in building an addition to the deep underground military base at Del State, New Mexico, which, by the way, is probably the United States' deepest base. It goes down 7 levels over 2.5 miles deep. But at that particular time, we had drilled 4 distinct holes in the desert ground, and we were going to link them together with shape charge explosives, and then we were going to basically blow out large sections at a time. Well, when I was my job at that time was to go down in these holes, gather rock samples, check them for their particularity or particle count, give a detailed account of what kind of chemical explosive or plastic explosive to use, and we'll go from there. As I was headed down there, to my total surprise, we found ourselves amidst a large cavern that was already full of outer space aliens, otherwise known as large, full of outer space aliens, otherwise known as large grays. I was petrified, as most people might be. The only thing I could think of doing at the time was shooting at them. I killed 2 of them, but by the time I could reload and refire at that time, I had a Walter PPK pistol. I was an engineer, so I didn't feel I had to carry a gun underground. I always carried this particular one. It's nice and small, and it's quite effective. But anyway, I killed a couple of these things, and at that time there was several other groups of people down there. It's about 30 people total, and 30 to almost 40 or more came down there, and they all got killed. Basically what had occurred was that we surprised a whole under mountain base of existing aliens, and later I was to find out that we are not the highest on the food chain. These aliens have probably been living on our planet for different groups of aliens anyway, the short and the tall grays at least, for a million years living here. And this could explain a lot of the theory behind the ancient theory of ancient astronauts and these other kinds of things like that. Might also explain the bloodthirstiness of different kinds of native populaces like the Aztecs, etc., Olmecs and whatnot. Anyway, I got shot basically here, and their kind of weapon wasn't really a gun-like thing. It was kind of like a box that they had on their body that they could manipulate. And it burned a hole in me, and it split my ribs apart, and kind of gory and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it also gave me a high dose of rather nasty cobalt radiation. And I have cancer to this day. It's probably a result of it, although I can't prove that. Okay, the second part of my talk is topic number 2, and includes basically how this all occurred. How could we have possibly gotten involved? Well, we finished working with, we basically were beaten down by World War II, and I guess we were figured to be rather vulnerable as a populace in the world, which we were at the time. And I'm sure this is probably why we at our weakest point later found out to be vulnerable indeed, and so we were basically attacked. And of course, I think some of us, how many people here are familiar with the crash at Aztec, New Mexico? Raise your hand. Okay, in 1947, sometime in July of 1947, there was a large crash of a flying saucer. I believe it had 7 or 8 alien critters, or whatever you want to call them, aliens in them. 1 survived, and I believe 6 or 7 were, I don't know the whole story about the whole thing. And one of the artifacts I have here on the table is when I was a young child, I was friend of my father was Sir Johnny Rawlins. He was head of British Naval Intelligence. And he gave me, I asked him if I could have a piece of metal of this crashed disc, and my father protested violently. But anyway, Johnny Rollins said, "Sure, I can give you a little piece." And he gave me a little piece. I've had them in my collection ever since. That was kind of like a small start of a collection. But other than that, the UFOs really wasn't my bag until I started work at Area 51. Which is in Nellis Air Force Base north of Las Vegas, Nevada. Going back in 1979 in a firefight, it took me about 2.5 years to recuperate, enough that I could go back to work. But I did. I survived, and I went back to work. Through Morrison Knudsen at EG&G and Bechtel and Page and Page and other construction outfits at the time. Anyway, at Area 51, they were testing all kinds of very peculiar spacecraft. I think you're also, how many people here, for instance, are familiar with Bob Lazar's story? Good. That's a good group indeed. I'd suggest more of you buy or obtain his tape or borrow his tape and read some of the publications. He was a physicist who worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory at Area 51, trying to decipher what was the propulsion factor of basically these alien spacecraft, these discs and other kinds of type of craft.
Probablemente del de Roswell. El que yo recuerdo mejor fue la fibra óptica, porque vieron que había, si me pongo a contar el caso no acabo, por eso mejor vamos a dejarlo. Pero bueno, de esa hombre nada más, era la fibra óptica y el hombre que era un niño muy chiquito, estaba con sus padres buscando ágatas y hace como unos 5 años o así, lo llevaron en helicóptero para ver si recordaba, que ahora tiene ya como 50 años así, y sí, se recordó de cosas diciendo aquí estaba, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Otra de las cosas que sacaron de ese ovni en concreto fue el láser. También vieron que había una cosa que la disparaban y le ponían una cosa y no hacía nada. Y, bueno, como les digo, hay para cada caso de los que yo les hable, hay para hablar horas. ¿Qué más cosas se fueron viendo? Pues empezaron a darse cuenta, vino la era de las mutilaciones, que se llevaban animales y que a los animales pues que les cortaban cosas. Y entonces los que andábamos en esto, pues estábamos a la última. Yo un día me acuerdo que oí muy temprano por la mañana, en la cama, que esto era en la isla de Puerto Rico. Había habido, pues por la noche, cogí el coche a toda velocidad y no fui como Puerto Rico, es una isla muy pequeña. Pues una hora y pico estaba en la mitad de la isla. Desde un alto vi una vaca, yo solo, tumbada en blanca y negra en la mitad de una pradera. Me costó un trabajo tremendo llegar a ella. Vi, la estuve mirando, le habían cortado. Yo no sabía que la vaca estaba muerta, podía haberla matado un cazador, no, pero yo ya me sospechaba de lo que era. Le habían cortado el borde de la nariz, creo, ya no recuerdo bien, porque miren, muchas de estas cosas han pasado 30 años y 40 años. ¿Se relacionan con las autoridades o no se relacionan con las autoridades? Sí, algunos que sí, otros que no, y por aquí, por allá. ¿Cuántos de ustedes han oído hablar de Holloman? A ver, levánteme la mano. Holloman, ¿le suena a alguien? A nadie. Holloman es una base, también allá de Nueva México, donde un día se bajó un platillo, bajaron 2 sombreritos chiquititos, fueron caminando hacia el sitio donde estaban los militares, esperándolos, ¿verdad? Y subieron arriba y tuvieron una larga conversación y ahí quedó hecho un trato, ¿verdad? Los ingleses tuvieron el mismo fenómeno en un sitio que estos días precisamente han hablado de él en la televisión, no sé por qué, que se llama Rendlesham, o se llama también Benuoras. Ahí se bajó otro platillo en la mitad de un bosque, en una base aérea, vinieron dos hombrecitos, salieron pum pum y estuvieron hablando con los comandantes ingleses y allí también hicieron sus tratos. De modo que conectados con las autoridades, hace años que están conectados y que tienen tratos con las autoridades. ¿A qué autoridades? Autoridades, que lo saben. Han tratado de ocultarnos, se han gastado millones de millones en callar a la gente, Y ustedes han oído, por